Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our buddy Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. They're digitally recording this for later broadcast on your local cable system, or you can see it shortly on their webpage. And the reason why, and it's a first for this program at least, the sheriff is here. Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert is here. And, as usual, he's brought along a special guest, someone who's been here before. And we said, well, you guys are here for the mayor. You're here for the town Wood County Board Chairman. Why not the sheriff?
Yeah, I always wondered that. I thought maybe I had made Jesse mad along the way. I wasn't sure.
No, well, Jesse's here, and he's going to make sure that you understand why I have a face for radio. Okay, let's, I guess, why don't we start with something James and I were stressing yesterday morning, and that is it's the start of the school year. Oh. And people need to be on the lookout for school buses and and kids getting on and off the buses. And I know last year I got a call during Over the Back Fence from a bus driver who said, would you please tell those idiots, don't pass the bus when the flashing yellows are on, because shortly after the flashing yellow comes the flashing red. You're going to risk hitting a kid. You don't do that. And when it flashes yellow, it means you should start slowing down, get ready to stop. It's basically, and
actually, yellow means stop.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a warning that the stop is coming. It doesn't mean
right.
It doesn't mean
you're not supposed
to pedal to the metal and get through it. Well, it actually means you should begin stopping and stop safely.
Right. And so please don't go racing, trying to race, beat the yellow light.
We have, in addition to the situation with schools, I'm fortunate enough to be the president of the board of Wood County Head Start.
Right.
And that's also a problem with the little ones getting onto the buses for Head Start also. So we it might be a school bus, it might be one of our Head Start buses. If you proceed with caution, I think is maybe the best way to characterize it.
Mm-hmm. I'm always very careful with when I see a Head Start bus. I know they don't have the same kind of lighting and stuff, but if they're stopped and I'm seeing activity, I tend to wait unless the driver kind of waves me by.
Well, and the thing is with you know that the children are very young.
That's it.
If it's a Head Start bus, and it's your thoughts on it, I think, are exactly mirror mine. I think you come close to it. There are several families in my neighborhood that are participant in the Head Start program, and you see that bus very, very often in our neighborhood. So it is a good rule of thumb to just proceed with extraordinary caution whenever you're in the bus or in the school zones too. The crossing guards, I think, do such a great job, and I have the opportunity to drive by very often by house school because it's so close to the courthouse. But I think at all the schools, the crossing guards do just a great job, and there's such a movement or flow of pedestrian traffic in those areas. It's that sign saying that reduced speed, you should follow it.
Yeah, fines double in school zones.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to spend a lot of money real quick, be stupid driving through a school zone. And I know the Rapids PD on their Facebook page said that they're going to be watching the school zones, and at the start of the year you have to. And out in the country, you got to be careful watching the buses and making sure that kids can get off the bus into their rural home.
That's exactly true. I know many times I've seen, I know our officers patrol in the county, and pay particular attention to that. I've seen the city officers near the schools all the time in all my years of traveling through town. And knock on wood, there have been some tragedies that have happened, but it could be so much worse than what it is, and it's such a fragile situation.
It's an easy thing to avoid.
It really is.
Just follow the rules. Be extra cautious, especially now in the early part of the school year when kids are so excited about the start of a new school year. And the younger, the more excited they are.
That's true.
Okay. Introduce your special guest.
Our special guest today is my sidekick, Quentin Ellis,
Yeah.
who is a captain at our department and a frequent visitor.
Yeah, he has been. He's been filling in for you sometimes.
He fills in for me often, and it's fun to bring him along. And the thing is with Quentin, he never complains about doing this. And I do the same thing all the time. I'm a creature of habit. I'll wait till Wednesday morning at like 9:35, and I'll say, "Hey, okay, Quentin, let's go over and do the radio show." And he goes, "Oh, I forgot it's Wednesday." We have a good time with it, but he never grumbles, never complains, does it? Quentin, I'm going to be out of town on Wednesday, or if I'm my Marshfield show on Friday. He finds people or goes and does it himself, and he's really become very, very important to me in terms of the operations of the Sheriff's Department and helping me do things.
I'd like to get your guys' take, and we've had on some unfortunate accidents of late and alcohol has played a role in some of them. I guess it bears repeating, especially now we're into football season and people going to tailgates or going to Badger and Packer parties and the like, or maybe you're going to Beer Fest here in Wisconsin Rapids on Saturday. Use a designated driver, for crying out loud.
Absolutely, Carl. There has been an increase in traffic fatalities over past few years here in Wood County this year, and alcohol has been a contributing factor in a couple of them. It's been an age-old saying, don't drink and drive, and there's so many reasons for that. The fatal crashes are just probably the most, I guess, in your face, shocking of them. They're very tragic. One recently, someone lost their life at a very young age. And alcohol suspected to be a factor in that crash. The Sheriff's Department and local police departments are people too. We understand people want to go have a good time, whether it be at the Packer party or the Beer Fest or family gathering or what have you. But there's so many resources available now that just planning ahead a little bit can go a long ways. There's pub pilots in town. There's use your designated drivers. If all else fails, just call somebody, or if you're stranded, call the Sheriff's Department, see if we can help you out in some way. We'd much rather facilitate a ride and get you home safely than be dealing with a crash.
I think I want to compliment the Rafters on this Beer Fest, because it's $40 for the beer, and then there's food that you can purchase. But if you're a designated driver, you get in for $15. Mm-hmm. So say you got a group, say of 4, and one of you is going to be the designated driver. The designated driver gets in for only $15. Mm-hmm. I mean, so if that's so you could still come for the party and the food and enjoy the music, and then you can take your buddies home.
In a day and age where the sheriff here has for a number of years gives up a New Year's Eve to give people a ride home, I think it shows the commitment that local law enforcement and the tavern leagues and the community as a whole is throwing into preventing these tragedies. As a community member ourselves, let's do our own part and make those good choices and use those resources that are available. Yeah. Like I said, that shows commitment on behalf of the sheriff, the department, tavern leagues, the people out there that are putting in the work to help avoid these problems. We need people to make good choices. It's as simple as planning ahead.
And this is going to be a big weekend in Wisconsin Rapids. You got Beer Fest at the stadium. You got the Smile for Lacey fundraiser downtown. There are going to be fireworks on Saturday. Then Sunday, you got the downtown Grand Affair. So you got to have a lot of traffic coming in and out of Wisconsin Rapids, and I'm sure, as with all celebrations, your department coordinates with Rapids PD and I got the chance to meet the new. I want to get your impressions too of the new police chief, but I'm sure this is a good example of coordination. Hey, there's going to be people traveling into Wisconsin Rapids and traveling out of Wisconsin Rapids this week.
Absolutely. We talk about it. We talk about it here on the show a lot, but it's really kind of almost become second nature for us to do it, which is a really good thing. It's you think back and you hear these horror stories from other places about turf wars and people thinking that little line that designates Grand Rapids from Wisconsin Rapids or town of Saratoga from Wisconsin Rapids or from Grand Rapids. It means nothing. It really, truly, if you're going to efficiently provide not just law enforcement services, but services in general, it means absolutely nothing in today's day and age in terms of cooperation. And I think our area was so far ahead of other areas in doing that. There are some that are just actually probably catching up now in terms of the assisting each other and the mutual sharing of equipment and the sharing personnel and staff and sharing office capacity. Whatever the case might be, we've been doing for years. Mm-hmm. And it has really become second nature. The idea of trying to do something by yourself now, the first thing I would say is why. You have all these other resources available to you. You have sheriff's departments, police departments, all have their own equipment, that specific equipment. You're just so much better off just using a umbrella approach and having everybody involved and being in on these events.
Yeah, and like I said, use a designated driver for the celebrations this weekend if you're going to be invited.
And it doesn't even really stop. We talk about the law enforcement aspect of it. It doesn't really stop. Until before Missy and I got together, I didn't really realize how involved in the whole process of planning parades and
celebration,
Grand Fair and
right.
Fireworks. How involved businesses and the Chamber of Commerce is in these things. It all just works together. Quite seamlessly, quite well. I can say beyond any doubt that we're probably doing it as well or better than any place in the state, and it's something we should be proud of. It's just not something you think about all the time.
That's true. We take it for granted. Mm-hmm. Had a chance to meet the new police chief. Had him here, and we talked. And it sounds like a kindred spirit, because he was talking a lot about proactive law enforcement, guys getting out of the cars and knowing their neighborhoods and getting to know people, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going, it sounds, and I know you. He said he had a nice visit with you. Your thoughts? It sounds to me there's two people on the same plane.
I totally agree. We had the opportunity several weeks ago to our entire administrative staff went out to lunch with the new chief, and just a most pleasant guy. Chief Blevins is a most pleasant guy, and we had a wonderful lunch and kind of talked theoretical ideas, which I think he and I are very much on the same page in terms of working together and mutual resources and so on. I would anticipate, and I think what we're experiencing right now is really a fairly seamless transition from Chief Hoyer to Chief Blevins, and it's worked out so well. Quentin and I were actually just kind of talking about that on the way over today, about how I wouldn't say easy, but certainly the transition doesn't appear to have been a very bumpy road for the Rapids PD, and I think that's a credit to both Chief Hoyer and to Chief Blevins, because both quality guys, both good individuals. Their hearts are in the right place. They certainly worked hard for many years, and it's all working out pretty good.
Given the fact that you both seem to be out of the same playbook, could we see some joint efforts, creative efforts, where you can share resources in terms of this proactive campaign?
We're already doing it.
Okay. Want to give some examples?
Yeah, we've already. Well, I think first and foremost is probably the drug investigation situation in Southwood County. Our drug officers work in hand with the Rapids PDs, sharing information, doing warrants together, doing interviews together. That information going back and forth, again, isn't something that's being guarded by one of the law enforcement entities. It's being shared so that cases can be developed in a very efficient manner.
Quentin, how important is that to the officer in the field?
The interoperability between the departments is huge. For instance, it starts on the patrol side too, working, say, night shift. Maybe one of the staffs are dealing with a increased call volume. Well, the Rapids Police Department officers know our deputies are going to come help them out. They're going to come into the city, and as Sheriff said, they're not going to say, "Oh, my line stops here." Granted, we have jurisdiction throughout the county, but we're going to be there to back them up. And our officers know likewise that just because the city of Rapids stops at or about 8th and Griffith, if we have an officer who needs help just outside of that, we know they're coming. And our staffs work together so regularly that it seems like one big department at times, just with different color uniforms. And that's been developed through years and years of working together, whether it be going to take the initial complaint at a call, responding to an altercation, a medical call, all the way up through investigations. Our investigators and their detectives work hand in hand on a lot of cases because crime doesn't care about jurisdictional boundary. So you might be working a burglary case that starts in Rapids and a couple places get hit out in the county, and then maybe over into Portage County. And our investigators work very closely on these cases so that for the victim, you're not just starting over and talking to one person. If we get information on a case from Rapids, we're going to get as much as we can and get their investigator involved as early as we can as well. So the interoperability between our departments isn't, as Sheriff said, something that's new. It's something that our officers, our deputies, our investigators, even our administrations are used to. We can work together without skipping a beat.
And that plays a big role when you have that in place, when you have that major emergency. It could be a weather-related emergency, a civil emergency, whatever it is, a big emergency where it becomes multi-jurisdictional. You guys are already used to working together.
That's true. That's true. Conversely, I think there are some cases. I spoke with one of our investigators yesterday about a case that we're working on, where we're involved with another law enforcement agency from outside of our area, and we notice, and we can tell that it's just not as I think familiar and not as friendly, I guess, with some other agencies from further away. It isn't that they're doing something subversive, certainly, in the case, but there's a feeling, at least on our investigators' part, that maybe everything's not being shared. That is going on with it, and that's really frustrating, I think.
I would imagine
in a case, and just to kind of have that feeling like maybe something's being held back on you that would make a difference, or looking at the reports, thinking maybe someone is thinking that maybe this report that you did isn't quite as good as what he would have done, and you don't see that terribly often in the Wood County community. It just doesn't happen very often, and I think when it happens in another area, it becomes just so obvious, and that was the source of the discussion yesterday.
By the way, we're going to open up the phone lines this morning at 715-424-2600 if you have a question for the sheriff. This is a radio listening session, so if you have a concern, you're welcome to express it. We ask you to be, respectful, and also try to be concise so we can get as many callers in as possible. I want to talk to you about something I've been noticing because I get these Nixle alerts in my email about cars being stolen in central Wisconsin. And so often I'm seeing this, I'm kind of amazed by it. people leaving their keys in the car. Does that, you find that frustrating?
To be honest, yes. We're a very victim-driven department, whether it be from the initial response to the investigation process. Our goal is to make the victim whole, okay? Where I think some agencies, whether it be larger areas or less staff or something, they take the report, they want to investigate it, catch the bad guy. Well, that's part of it, but we really take the approach of, we're here to serve. That's part of it, right? The old protect and serve.
Right.
We're here to serve the community that we service, and we want those victims made whole. So our first goal is to get them their car back or get them their item back, because sometimes the pound of flesh but not getting the family heirloom or the vehicle back, that isn't enough for the victim, and understandably so. So with that being said, we invest a lot of time and effort and resources into this victim-driven concept at our department. And when you go to a vehicle theft and you're thinking, hey, I got to do everything I can to get this vehicle back before it's trashed, before it's 2 states away, and then you hear, well, I left it outside and it was unlocked. My keys are in the car. We understand people make mistakes. They have very busy lives, and we've probably all done it at some point or another. So it's not to say that our officers are going, well, you deserve it. That's certainly not the case.
No.
Nobody deserves that. But it's going, man, let's do the things to help ourselves in the community. Let's lock the cars up, leave the windows up, not store things of value in the vehicles, have lighting outside when appropriate. And we can then, on our end, as the Sheriff's Department or local police department, share that information when these things start occurring so that the community knows. Times have changed. Neighborhoods aren't as closely knit as they were even when I grew up. So that's another thing we can get the community involved in,
Talking
looking
to
at
your
our
neighbor.
neighborhoods,
Yep.
and locking things up.
I totally agree. This has been kind of a generational thing. When I was a kid, when we growing up down by St. Peter and Paul, we never locked our doors. That just didn't. Our doors were always open.
Right.
We would go to bed at night, and when it was hot out, the inside door would be open and the screen door would be there. And it wasn't locked. It just wasn't something that happened. So it's certainly a generational thing. And it kind of brought back a memory for me with the discussion we just had. My dad loved cars and a big car fan, and he always one of the thing that he's worked hard for his entire life is he loved Lincoln Town Cars.
Okay.
And when he was later in his working career and during retirement, he always had a new Lincoln Town Car that he drove around. Well, my dad also was not a big believer in taking the keys out of it. And so what happened one night, and I was an investigator already at the Sheriff's Department, so it was probably like in the early 90s. I got a phone call at like 2 a.m. It was my mom saying that my dad's car had gotten stolen, and so we had, so we got that whole thing rolling. And here, come to find out, my dad would park the car in the garage and close the door, but he would leave the keys in the car. And so some guy broke into their garage and got out with this gorgeous Lincoln Town Car that was probably like 8 months old. It was just gorgeous. Now, the Rapids PD got it back. Nothing was wrong with it. But then, of course, my mom and dad were like kind of weird about, I kind of feel funny about sitting in this car now that someone had stolen it, And I think if memory serves me right, he went and bought another new car, it just because of the kind of the psychological effect. But certainly, we have folks, I think, still in our community that probably leave their keys in the car just because that's what they did. That's how it was.
And you can't do that now.
You can't do that anymore. I think there's still people out there that don't lock their doors at night, and I find that kind of hard to imagine. Actually.
Same here.
But I really believe that that's probably still happening in some in some neighborhoods, and part of what we do, part of the serve equation that Quentin was talking about is education, and to get people to do those things. And that's why what you're doing for us is so important, Carl, being able to, my guess is that there is somebody listening to this show right now that either leaves their keys in the car or doesn't lock their door.
Yeah.
And I'd love it if they would call.
Yeah, don't do that, please. We don't want your stuff stolen or anything bad to happen. We got to pay some bills. We got to take our first break. But again, the phone lines are open at 715-424-2600. Our monthly visit with Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert. Back with more right after this.
Good morning and welcome back to The Morning Magazine, presented by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. It's time for part 2. Once again, here's Carl Hilke.
Thanks again, Jerry, and welcome back, everybody, to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our buddy Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. They are digitally recording this in high definition for later airing on your cable system and also on their website. And the reason why the Wood County Sheriff's Department is here. Sheriff Thomas Reichert and Captain Quentin Ellis are here. The last time you were here, you were filling in for Wood County Board Chairman Lance Plumel, who was out of town on a business trip. And you brought up the development of a new monitoring program, this one involving people on bond.
Correct.
Okay, what's the update?
Well, we're working hard on it right now, getting a program in place. Ted Ashbeck, who's our captain back in the jail, is looking at different options that we have right now in terms of how we would proceed with the program. There's a couple of different ways that we could go about doing it. We could either contract with an outside company to take care of some of the monitoring, some of the day-to-day activities that go on, in terms of testing and maintenance of the system, or we could take that program on within the Sheriff's Department ourselves, keep it internal, and have it really be our own. And I'm really at this point, I haven't made a final decision on it. I have to probably this week yet. I'm going to meet with Captain Ashbeck and talk to him about it. I'm really leaning towards keeping it inside our department.
Would it be less expensive if you did it?
It would be less expensive. It isn't really a matter of being less expensive. It would mean that we're going to make more money. Okay. And the basis of one of the big things that we're trying to do with this is to make our jail. And the county board has given us very, very clear direction as to what kind of an operation they want in the jail. We had talked about it a little bit. There were votes taken. There doesn't seem to be a will on the county board to invest, at least at this point, in a large new jail, criminal justice facility type structure. And our challenge then is to make do with what we have, and that kind of harkens back to like my early days. And we've talked about this on the show too. The sisters at St. Peter and Paul, they always, one of their main things is be happy with what you got. What you have is a blessing, and that's how I've really always kind of tried to look at this, because it's been a very difficult. It's been a very difficult problem for our department, having a jail that doesn't really meet our number capacity and becoming older every year, getting more and more dated. Equipment inside the jail is becoming obsolete in some cases and has to be revamped. But we've stayed on top of it, and we've really, the jail today is far better than it was 12 years ago, and it's far better than it was 20 years ago. It is technology-wise, it's on the cutting edge. We're doing things that are that other places are just catching up with now. We've been doing them for the last 8 years, and things are working out well for us. Now, this electronic monitoring for bond people, I think, is just the next piece of that progression of really making our making our jail 21st century and getting it to a point where we're able to handle the capacity that we have, which we are, but to be able to continue to do that into the future, for the long future I'm looking at now. I'd like to see us have a not be pressured into making a decision on building a new jail for 20 years is what I would really love to see.
Correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear from you is you envision the jail as being the place for the most dangerous, the ones that are the high risk, they're a danger to society, etc. And the other less danger, what we used to call Huber or other stuff like that, let's use modern technology, put them on monitoring. We know where they're going. You've described how precise this monitoring is. We can get into that. But am I in the right?
You're hitting it. You're spot on. You're absolutely spot on with the way that we're looking at this. There is always going to be a brick and mortar jail for the bad guys that are out there that are committing sexual assaults, robbing people, certain drug cases, etc. There's always going to be a concrete brick and mortar facility for them where they're going to be incarcerated. What we're looking for is we're trying to make our financial situation and the county situation more agreeable by kind of working the edges a little bit, which is what you described as we still do actually have Huber prisoners. We still do have people that are on work release that we work with emergency government with and have some great programs going, and it's working out well. But the way that we're going to ensure our viability into the future is through technology. And this electronic monitoring for bond folks is going to be a great way to do it. The example that I had given you, I think when I filled in for Lance, was we had an individual who was in on a $200 cash bond. So meaning she can't get out of jail because she can't come up with $200. She doesn't have friends or relatives or resources of her own for that money. She was pregnant, so she's in the jail. We're providing at that time for her all of her prenatal care, which we have to pay for, which doesn't come free. You know, the chat about who's going to pay for health care. Well, it's an easy answer. If you're in jail, the sheriff's department pays for the health care. Okay. And so we're paying the health care on her prenatal care for basically a $200 bond. Now, I don't know. I'm no threat to cancer, I think, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to keep someone in jail for $200 on a minor offense that's costing us thousands of dollars in prenatal care. It just doesn't.
No, that doesn't make sense.
And those are the type of situations that we're going to try to target first and get going on, and then move on from there. The criteria for this program will be very similar to what we've done on our general electronic monitoring program. They'll have to pass a test. There'll be statistical analysis as to what the likelihood is that they would possibly reoffend. They'll be subject to random drug tests. They'll be hooked up to alcohol monitors, so we'll be able to monitor whether or not, if drinking's an issue, if that comes up. We'll be able to, in terms of, again, something that Quentin brought up about us being very victim-driven at the Sheriff's Department, we're going to be able to establish zones from where the victim is likely to be that this person can't enter into, or the electronic monitor will tell us this victim is within 1 mile of the victim's house, or 5,000 feet, or whatever the criteria would be. So, what we're going to do with this is we're going to really make we're going to keep everything safe, but we're going to do it in a very financially viable way. And as I had also said, for folks maybe that hadn't heard the show before, we're going to probably make probably anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000 a month in profits, so to speak, by doing this at our jail.
How do you make that money? How is that? Is that from the savings?
It'll be from the savings of what we would otherwise have been expending for having someone in jail. It costs us about $50 to keep someone in jail for a day. To put them on these monitors will cost us probably about $10.
Is it harder? How for the? I like to go to Quentin here for the guy on the beat. Is it tough to keep track of people on monitoring, or just talk about how sophisticated monitoring has gotten?
Well, I don't think the guys out on the beat would see a change, to be honest with you. Rather than it might be easier to find somebody if they need to investigate a case, or they know they're out on bond or believe they violated the bond. If they're out on electronic monitoring because of it, they can talk to our staff that coordinate the oversight of it, see where they are, see where they've been. This electronic option will actually hold people in a lot of ways more accountable for their actions, for their everyday actions. For instance, now if somebody's out on bond, they have several conditions that are appointed to them by the judge. And when we get a call that, hey, so-and-so violated their bond, there's a bit more of investigative work to corroborate that statement or prove that they did, where this monitoring program in a lot of ways would have already done that work for us. It would have said, yep, they were in location X where they shouldn't have been. They consumed intoxicants when they shouldn't have. Any number of those things keep these people actually, I believe, more accountable than previous means. So the impact for the patrol officer or investigator would actually be, I would see, a positive one. They wouldn't be the ones tasked with the oversight or monitoring of them. The sheriff would work with our current staff to have people in charge of that much similar to the way our electronic monitoring program already works.
How many people are on electronic monitoring now on the current system that you have?
Generally between 25 and 30 a day.
Okay.
And over the course of some of our projections right now,
and these people are people who have been convicted of
a variety of different offenses.
And they're on their sentence includes monitoring.
Well, the monitoring portion of it, how the law is written is a judge sentences an individual to whatever he deems that sentence to be. Once that person is turned over to the jail staff, the implementation of that sentence becomes kind of the prerogative of the sheriff, as long as that sentence is being met. So a judge will sentence someone to 10 days in jail. I can put the person on monitor for 10 days.
Yeah, that's why I asked that question.
I can put the person on monitor then for 10 days to fulfill that sentence.
Okay.
Kind of going back to something Quentin had said about the monitors. One of the most fascinating things I think that we've learned from our early program is what some of the people that have been on monitor have told us after they got off. And one of the things that is almost, I can't think of anyone that had the converse to say. They found that being on electronic monitoring was much, much more difficult than serving their time inside. They, the idea, I think maybe, and part of it might be the idea that, boy, if I just walk out into that yard, they're going to know that they're going to know that I walked out my front door and I went into the yard and walked over to my neighbors, which we would be able to tell. So they're correct in that.
Well, but
it's a psychological thing.
Well, yeah, they're out in the world. They're out, but they're not free.
Correct.
And so I can't go here where certain people go. I can't go here. Whereas if they're locked up, well, okay, I'll just count down the days. That's it. Mm-hmm. But when you're out there, it's a mental
It's a totally psychological thing. And it has worked out for us so very well. Like I said, we're going to this year save somewhere in the area of $500,000 having the electronic monitor program, which opens up a whole new discussion for us, in terms of what the sheriff's department contribution is to the county as a whole. Because of electronic monitoring, during the course of my time as sheriff, I've been able to return $4 million to the general fund or to the county in general from our budget to balance things at the highway department or the health department or any of the agencies within the courthouse, which has been, I think if you ask Lance, he'd tell you that's probably been a pretty big help.
Yeah, I think he has told me that. We're going to take our last break and be back to wrap up this edition of the Morning Magazine. Morning Magazine, Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert and Captain Quentin Ellis have been our guests as we've been, and we thank our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Jesse's here, getting my best side.
You're too hard on yourself, Carl.
I know. Hey, it's self-depreciating humor. I've made a career of it. We're talking about off mic, with we got what happened at Houston. Now we got another big storm headed for Florida, and the vultures are out, the scamsters. And I was wondering the latest. People are calling up requesting money, and people don't know if it's legit or whatever. I guess your thoughts about that and what people should be aware of. I mean, I even got one from the Department of Financial Institutions at the state about investment scams involving the Houston disaster. I mean, it's sad.
It really is. And off air we were talking about I liken these folks to vultures.
Yeah.
Like swooping in and trying to pick off someone that's less fortunate. It appalls me that people would do this, but unfortunately, with every good thing that we have in our world, there generally is a corresponding bad thing, and technology certainly has made that point. And I think that folks need to be very, very aware of any sort of potential scams coming from either the hurricane in Houston or potentially the ones that are going to be in Florida, and really vet what the details are of the offer or how to help, or generally I think that the best way to go about doing this is using and donating your money or your resources to gold standard organizations like the Red Cross.
Right.
Something that you've heard for years, or Catholic Charities or the Red Cross.
Your church might be collecting through their social service agency, and do it that way.
I think that's just so much more safer than doing it through a company called Save Houston or something.
Yeah, right. But no, they make a great sales pitch, and it sounds legit, and then they want to get into your bank account, and
they want to get into your bank account, and generally these credible organizations, Red Cross, Catholic Social Services,
Lutheran Social Services.
There's any number of them that are very, very high quality. They aren't going to ask for your bank information.
No.
They're going to ask you for maybe like a check for. I know I watch ESPN all the time. The Red Cross has got a deal where you can text for 10 and give $10.
Right.
Which is a great thing. They're going to ask for money in more credible ways than your routing number and your account number of your bank account.
Yeah.
And those are really danger signs of any sort of relief efforts or charities, for that matter, that are looking for money. Yeah.
And if someone comes up with you with a great investment idea, be highly suspicious about it.
Exactly.
So Quentin stepped out of the studio and brought some stuff into the.
We did. I just thought we've recently got a bit of a memento of the Sheriff's Department. It's called a challenge coin.
Okay.
And a number of places give these away, and we have some here at we've gotten some at the Sheriff's Department for occasions to give away, and we thought that maybe to give one or two of these away for to call-ins today would be a nice gesture if people would like them. It's here, I'll give one. It's a pretty gold coin.
It's very nice. It says dedication, commitment, honor, integrity, and it has the shield of the Wood County Sheriff's Department.
And on the reverse side is my sheriff star.
Okay.
And this is essentially commemorating my time as sheriff.
Okay.
So I would love if we could maybe give a couple of these away.
Okay.
And,
First two people that call, 424-2600. These are nice mementos. And the first two people that call, 424-2600. Right now, we'll get one of these.
let's do it now.
Now. Schnell! You want? I mean, I'm serious, folks. These are very nice. See, these are very nice. That's the front side for our TV viewing audience, and the other side. So, I mean, these are really nice. Okay, we got
two.
We got two. Okay, who is this?
Jan Mays.
Okay.
Oh, Jan, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing, Tom?
Good. How's Les been?
He's getting along much better, but he's getting old fast.
Okay.
As we all are.
Oh, Jan, we're going to have this at the front desk. You stop by the station and pick it up.
Okay, will do. Thank you, you guys.
You're
Have a
very
good day.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jan.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And our next winner of our second coin, is this person. Who is this?
This is Matt in the Hat.
Hey, Matt in the Hat. Well, guess what, Matt? You're getting one of these commemoratives, even though you wear purple.
Oh, no.
Oh, come on. You had to go there, Carl.
Hey, it's the start of the NFL season. You know you're my favorite Viking fan.
They haven't even started yet.
I know. Well, Matt.
Well, it's good to hear you and Tom and Quentin on the radio. It's been a good show today.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Thank you. That's really nice of you.
Okay. Well, we'll have this for you at the front desk, and you can pick it up.
Hopefully I'll catch it.
Oh, very good.
Ooh.
Yeah, you can flip it and see which one is heads and which is tails.
All right. You guys have a good day. Thank you.
Bye. Okay.
Bye now.
Okay. Yeah, there. These are nice. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'll try to remember to bring some every show we do from now on.
Can I get one?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, we've been doing this show for.
For years. It's been a great run.
Yeah. So I guess now as we are into the fall season, how does that change the Sheriff's Department at all? End of boat patrol or so?
Right. It does mark the end of some things. Because sometimes I'm concerned that everybody at the Sheriff's Department is playing fantasy football, but
I don't know what you're talking about.
Interested in a trade, Quentin.
Right.
Well, actually, I'm more into pick'ems.
Sometimes there's vicious rumors that Quentin may be in my office giving me advice on fantasy football. I don't know if that.
We just like to meet on Tuesday mornings. So.
Okay.
But seriously, though, I think we're looking at the end of certainly our boat patrol and maybe gearing down a little bit from some of our summertime activities and really getting ready for the holiday season is what we'll be working on. And with the start of school, it seems like it got to be fall over a 1 day, 2 day period.
I know. Well, it's supposed to warm up come the weekend, but yeah, we went from September to October real quick. Mm-hmm. But I guess be careful out there. Be aware of hunters in the woods and stuff like that.
It's just around the corner also.
Yeah.
So there's as the seasons transition, there's always the trend just happens, and we just move on to the next.
Yeah, but hopefully, if nothing else, folks, there's going to be a lot of activities this weekend in the greater Wisconsin Rapids area, and we welcome all the visitors coming for the different celebrations, but please take advantage of things like pub pilots or, hey, if you got a buddy who doesn't drink and wants to go to Beer Fest for the food and the music and the other fun, hey, tell them, hey, you'll pay their $15 ticket.
Mm-hmm. And, if somebody, if someone is in a bind, call me. I don't know that I'd be able to come pick you up myself, but I certainly could try to find somebody to come and get you.
That's better than the alternative. We don't want any more fatalities or bad things. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time this morning.
You're very
Quentin,
welcome.
It's always nice to see you.
Good to see you, Carl. Thanks for having me.
Okay, and Tom's good to see you.
Always an honor.
And We'll talk again next month.
Thank you.
And we want to thank Jesse as well from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, who was here for today's show. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Morning Magazine on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. And again, our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media were here as well. And check out their website for a replay of this 24/7 at your leisure, or check out the schedule on your cable system.